So let's say I start with chord C. I call it chord C. So it's made up of chord C at the bottom, A, and then G on top, right? And if I call that chord 1, then what would be chord 5? If C was 1, what would be 5 if you go up the alphabet? C, D, E, F, G. G would be chord 5, correct? So if G is chord 5, what's my chord? G, B, D, because chords are made up of notes that are skips apart. So G, B, D is my chord 5. And the chord 5-7 that I keep talking about is that I added one more on top. G, B, D, and F, because I keep going skip G, skip A, go to B, B, skip C, go to D, D, skip E, go to F. Now that is my chord 5-7. The 7 is written like a normal number. So chord 5-7, or in this case, in this particular case, this chord is called G7. This chord is called the C chord. But that's not how I played it. No, you played an inversion of it, that's all. So what you did was you moved the B way below, and you play the B here. Then you move the G way up here, and you decide to keep the F here. So then you get this chord. Wait a minute, I deleted one note. There's only 3 notes here, B, F, and G that I play, right? How about the D? Well, yeah, most of the time when we have too many notes, it's this one that we will delete. We call that the 5th of the chord. This note at the bottom, we call that the root note of the chord. The note stacked on top of it, a skip apart, we call that the 3rd note of the chord. The note here, stacked on top of the 3rd, is the 5th note of the chord. And I'm hoping, like some of you, I see you're taking notes. Wonderful. Yes, do take notes. And the F is the 7th. Because if G was 1, A would be 2, B would be 3. That's why this note is called the 3rd of the chord. If B was 3, C would be 4, and D therefore is the 5th. If D was 5, then E would be 6, and F would be the 7th. Basically, you're saying the distance, the interval. In music, we say the distance is an interval. We don't say distance. We say interval. So the bottom if is 1, then this one would be 3, this one would be 5, this one would be 7. So a chord that's made up of a combination of these, well, ideally, yes, we do play that D over here as well. But that's very hard on your hands. It's very hard on your fingers. So the explanation that most books give you this G7 this way, with the F and a G on top and the B at the bottom, it's because it's easier for your hands. So pinky of the left hand plays this one, index of the left hand plays the F, and thumb of the left hand plays the G. B, F, G, and it's easier. That's how the G7 came about, and that's the theory behind it. Okay, what if I'm not starting on C? The examples I just played earlier for you, it wasn't C. I started on G instead. The notes are the same, but the name of the chord will be different because my chord 1 now will be not G. It will be, not C, it will be G. So now I'm starting with the chord 1 being G, G, B, D. And earlier when you see my hand, I'll show you how to move from that G to a half step to this black key, which is basically F sharp. Right? And then you're keeping your thumb up there. So D should be there with the thumb. And then instead of that B in the middle, I said move it by half step up. Half step up from B is a C. So I showed you on a keyboard how to move to get from this chord 1 to this chord 5-7. What's the name of this chord 5-7 again? Last week we've seen it by like a trick. We say, oh, the name's always in the thumb. So this chord is called D7. And this chord was called G, right? If G was 1, you're playing D7. And if we go backwards into the theory, well, D7 means you have D, you skip a note, you have F. But in G major, F is sharp. So there's that F sharp. And if you are counting my 4 half steps, you will find that it's D to F sharp. That's 4 half steps. The trick I gave way at the beginning, how to find any major chord, count 4 half steps from the bottom note to the middle note. There it is. 4 half step, you find F sharp, not F. 3 half steps later, you find the next note, which is A. And then if we add a 7th on top, it should be the letter, because F jump G gets the A, jump B get the C. So the original way that D7 is actually here. It's made up of D, F sharp, A, C. But in most books, they will present it to you this way. And this way, it's just like, put the F sharp at the bottom, put the bottom note to the top, and then put the top note like in the middle of the notes and delete this one. It's the same function. It's the same motion on your hand. And now theory-wise, you could see it. It's basically the same logic. Going from port 1G to D7, you're moving that way. And then the third one that I just did for you was not G, it was chord F. So now my starting point is F. So do it on the paper while I'm erasing by yourself and see if you could figure out all the notes that make up that F chord and its equivalent. Oops, I erased some stuff I shouldn't have. I need a note here. And this is the note that we usually delete. Right? Okay. So I hope you have the time to write your chords, because now if your starting point is F, then chord 1 is a chord F, which is made up of F, A, C. Okay, what is chord 5? If F was 1, G would be 2, A would be 3, and B would be 4, and 5 would be C. So chord 5 would be chord C. Now we're going to write it with a 7 on top. C7. So C, skip a letter. E, skip a letter. G, which we will not replay when we're getting to this inversion. Then skip a letter from G is not B, but B flat. And that's the difficulty. How do I know it's B flat? Because in F major, you have to remember F major, the key signature has 1 flat. And if you do remember my warm-up that I've shown from the past first 2 modules, warm up in F, please. The 2-2-1-2, F, 2 half steps later, G, 2 half steps later, A, 1 half step later, this black key. But I've just said A, so this black key must be called B. B what? B flat. This B would be here. This is B flat. It's a little bit half step lower.
We don't see your hands.
Yeah. I know. There's no way for me to show the whiteboard and my hands. But if you get to this point and trying to understand the theory, you would have already practiced all my warm-ups, and you would find F major. Now it's just a matter of naming each of those keys that you've been playing. F, G, A, B flat, the black key, C. So in F major, you have a B flat. And if you remember that, in F major, you have a B flat. Then the B that you're putting in your chord needs to be flat, because all the chords notes came from your scale. So then when you are actually practicing it in the way most books present it, you'd be placing that bottom note on top. See, this top note B flat would become the one in the middle, and this third of the chord E will become the bottom. So if I erase whatever's the explanation here, my shortcut to you was just to play the F chord, F's A, C, then move your pinky down half step, which gives you E. The middle note A will be changing for the B flat, which is half step above it, and we're keeping that C. And that's how we move. And that's just the explanation, the theory explanation.
So we be able to construct all of the major key that way to get to the chords 5-7?
Yes. You can construct theoretically, or you can just play instead. So if you're just playing, then you move by motion. So from C to G7, it's chord 1. If chord 1 is C, chord 5 is G7, right? How do we move? Pinky by half step, middle by half step. That's your G7. Now you understand what went on. Why do we call this thing G7? It's the theory that I just explained. What about starting from G instead? How do we get to that other chord that we use often in any song? Pinky moves by half step, and we replace that by a key half step higher. So how do we call that? The trick I gave you last week was, the name is here, D7. Or you can also say, well, if G was my chord 1, what is 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, D. D is 5, chord 5, 7. So G to D7 almost has the same sound as C to G7. And notice that when did I change to 5-7? Little lamb, the second little lamb, right? If I was in G, I can move my right hand to the G position and play the same song. Little lamb. The second little lamb is also when I change my chord to the other chord. Little lamb. Right? How about the F? How do we move from the chord F, which is considered chord 1, to the chord 5-7? Pinky down by half step. Replace the middle finger by index half step above. So does it work for Mary Had Little Lamb? Yes, if you've been doing your warm-up in F, which I recommend you do at least C, F, and G, right? Then you know that the fourth note needs to be this black key. So when you're playing Mary Had Little Lamb, you'd go, and the second little lamb would be switching chord. What is the chord again? Half step, half step. Right? It's the same song.